is exciting.
Yes.
To do this. Yeah.
I'm excited. Let's kick this off.
We're just going to keep everybody waiting a little bit more. We're just going to sit here and not let anybody know what we're about to talk about. They have to still wait another minute and 30 some seconds.
And we'll build up the suspense.
This is when we should be having like some suspenseful music playing. It's so clear the screen. I feel like if I just look to my side, even though I don't know which side to look to, I could be looking right at you. We've tried that before.
Yes, we have.
I can look up, you can look down. That would work.
We've also recorded it where we've done it and it was the wrong way.
Yes. Yeah.
And both of us were just staring off to the wrong side of people.
Right. Yes, that happens. I feel like, should I be doing the Jeopardy theme song? No, because everybody will be here with us soon. And hopefully anybody who's watching right now, before we really get started, can like and subscribe and make comments below. Ask questions. We will have a time period where we can answer questions, so that's exciting.
That is.
The whole thing is exciting. Anytime a new year starts, it's exciting because we always have something brand new for the community. Welcome to Where Are They Now with Aortic Hope. Where Are They Now is a new initiative for us this year, and it's geared towards sharing updates from prior individuals who were featured in our Survivor series. I'm Karen Anderson, and featured in today's episode is our very own Gregg Greenberg.
Hi, I'm Gregg Greenberg. I am the Director of Community Outreach for Aortic Hope, and I am a Type A and Type B dissection survivor.
So let's jump right in there. Why don't you briefly tell us a little bit of a backstory about your initial event, diagnosis, and what your initial recovery was like?
Okay, so my initial event was I dissected on September 21st, 2013. So at this point, approaching 8 years. Like I said before, it was a Type A, B dissection. I pretty much tore the length of my aorta. I presented classically, which made it very easy for them to diagnose, fortunately. But unfortunately, that meant extreme pain and checking all the boxes that are pretty much the most horrible things that they write down associated with dissection. But like I said, it helped them diagnose me, so that's the most important thing. The biggest thing about my story was that it was a 98-day hospital stay. I had some major complications, some that were dissection created, some that were happenstance, but definitely not aided by the dissection. But here we are almost 8 years later, and we're doing good. I just had surgery I just had what they call the elephant trunk procedure. So it addressed both my arch aneurysm and ascending aorta, as well as my descending dissection, which was addressed vascularly. That was approaching 3 months ago. So I'm at the tail end of like actually healing from that surgery. And I can tell you from firsthand experience now, as scary as the idea of the second surgery is for us dissectees, I'll take the planned surgery over the emergency surgery any day.
So going back to 98 stay in the hospital, you probably didn't have what a lot of us had, which was traditional cardiac rehab. So tell us a little bit about what your rehab experience was like, whether it's with the first one or the surgery you just most recently had.
Yes, I did not have traditional cardiac rehab, mostly because of the fact that I needed like severe physical rehab, and occupational rehab. So it wasn't just about getting me up and moving like a lot of and figuring out what was safe like a lot of cardiac rehab. Um, I unfortunately had transmetatarsal amputation, so I lost most of both feet. So I literally had to learn how to walk again, and basically how to shower myself, how to go to the bathroom safely, everything. Um, so I did 2 weeks of inpatient at the hospital, and quickly progressed through that. They were really encouraged with how just daily it was leaps and bounds. And then I did a couple months outside, once a week physical therapy. I didn't really need occupational at that point, but once a week physical therapy to really get to learn how to walk with my new amputations. Because it changes, it was going to change a lot. My gait was going to change, how you distribute weight. So we just, obviously for safety reasons, you have to make sure that you're safely on your feet.
Mm-hmm. Now, having had all of that, and I'm sure there's limited memory as far as your initial stay, and I already know the answers to these things because we talk all the time, but in terms of PTSD, and maybe even being triggered by this surgery, which was planned. I mean, it was planned in advance. You even have another procedure that you know when that's going to be happening in the future. How does that impact somebody from a PTSD or just emotional triggering response? How does that affected you?
Yeah, I think we have like two real classifications that are different. There's the general anxiety, and then there's the PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
The PTSD for me was really bad initially after I dissected. I was having like real physiological responses. It wasn't just like getting a little worked up. I was passing out in the hospital, and they couldn't figure out why. But basically, my mind was shutting my body off, and
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it would last a minute or two where I was unresponsive. Sometimes it would only be 20 seconds, and I would come back. And it was funny because I'd be exhausted, like I just literally like ran a marathon, like just mentally and physically exhausted from it.
Mm-hmm.
But it would literally be like 15 seconds and I was sitting in a bed. Like why all of a sudden are you wiped? But it was taking a lot out of me. Once they figured out, once we did like the EEGs and figuring out that I wasn't having seizures or anything like that, then the psychologist really and the psychiatrist really worked with me. I was fortunate to feel them coming on, so we were able to establish some breathing techniques that would keep me grounded and slow everything up. And I was able to beat that. As far as other PTSD, I've been fortunate. I'm not triggered too much by the sounds and smells that a lot of people in our community are. Um, I don't hear an ambulance and shut down. I know a lot of people hear a helicopter overhead when they were life flighted, and that triggers a lot of emotions for them. I'm fortunate that that stuff doesn't really exist for me, but I do suffer. I do suffer from the nightmares. Um, a lot of it is, I don't know if it's my mind filling in the blanks or if it's actually me reliving moments that I am, because like you said, so much of my experience was wiped out.
Mm-hmm.
My hospital experience, there's really little to no memory of it. Um, from the moment I dissected to the moment I was operated on was a couple hours. I don't have memory of the paramedics getting to my house to the moment until I was brought out of sedation 7 to 10 days later. I don't have any memory of that, and I never lost consciousness up until the surgery. So it was just gone. My brain shut it down, which happens a lot of times in trauma. Your brain protects you. So from that standpoint, a lot of those emotions that I know a lot of people in the community feel, um, oh my God, I'm fighting, I knew I was fighting for my life, but I don't have any memory of like feeling that fight.
So let's talk about, you were just mentioning about memory. So that is true, not having the memory of that. One of the things that we do talk about in the community, which can be because of anxiety, and that's such a great point that you brought that up, because not everything that we experience that makes us emotional is PTSD. It truly can just be generalized anxiety. So talk to me about Pumphead before I forget the question I was about to ask you about Pumphead.
Ironically, until you don't want to forget the question about Pumphead, which
Right.
is all about forgetting what you
Right.
were going to ask. Yeah, no, Pumphead, it's there. I mean, I definitely struggle with it. Um, there's so much overlap with stuff. Like a lot of what I blame with Pumphead, I mean, I definitely have memory issues. I think like a lot of people in the community that can probably commiserate with both you and I on this. I'll repeat myself. There are times that I've told you something an hour before, and then I text you, "Hey, I forgot to tell you earlier this," and you're like, "You did tell me," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." That memory of me telling you initially is gone.
Yeah.
So I don't really like my memories are sharp on long term. What happened before the dissection? That's all sharp. I can pull that up, recall. I can tell you, the wonderful clothing that I wore to my birthday party at 6 years old. I can tell you all that sort of stuff. What I ate yesterday for breakfast, on the other hand, that's a roll of the dice at any given moment, a flip of a coin, so to speak. If I remember that, and there are a lot of other things. Is it Pumphead? Like, is my lack of focus? Is the ability to focus on stuff? I used to love reading. That doesn't really exist anymore. There are times that I can't sit through a movie, and for those people that know me well, that's unheard of. Uh, that focus, is it Pumphead? I notice changes. It could be Pumphead. So, but there's so much overlap with the PTSD thing too, because certain things change our cognitive makeup, whether it be the Pumphead, whether it be PTSD and our personality. It's just so much of what we've been through, the trauma itself.
Yeah.
So I don't know if everything is such an easy way to point a finger at an individual culprit, or if it's just a conglomerate of things that have happened to you and the trauma that you've sustained.
Mm-hmm. So we've talked about this next question quite a few times. We get this a lot in the community. What people do to celebrate, if at all, their first aortiversary or their fifth, or like me, if I can get a gift, I'm going to celebrate it every single year. But what did you do, if anything, for your aortiversary? Do you visit the hospital? Do you stay in contact with anybody? Do you just look at it as if it's a day and then it's tomorrow? How do you go about your day?
I try to celebrate it in my own way. I don't make too much of a big deal about it. Because there's always a fine line of like, we know that we have to live this and it's a part of us, but do you want to get stuck in it all the time?
Mm-hmm.
And I would really prefer if it would just move on like any other day. But you're right. We've had a second chance with surviving this. Whether you call it your aortiversary, some people call it rebirth days,
Mm-hmm.
because it is a rebirth for them. I am for whatever makes you happy. You want to celebrate it, go and celebrate it. In my case, I will probably get the dinner of my choice, which
Is what usually?
it can be anything. A lot of the times I will actually cheat and potentially lean towards Chinese
Mm-hmm.
and say, I don't really care about what the sodium content's going to do to me today. I
Just
want,
no onions. Just no onions.
as long as there's no onions, yeah, no, as long as we're doing that. But there are times that I'll cook as well. I just make sure that like we're going to cook steak tonight because I feel like a steak. That's one of those where I dictate the menu, even though I'm cooking, as opposed to taking orders as to what I'm cooking. But because there are, I'll flex my muscles and go, it's my day when I need to. But I try, like, I would really wish for it to go by without much thought in my sense. Celebrate it, Yahoo! It's another year. I think a lot of us are freaked out initially. We read the statistics that we read online scare us. We don't realize that those statistics are from 2012, a whole different era already in aortic repairs. And a lot of the times, the people that are in those studies were 60 and 70-year-olds. So when people see certain life expectancies at maybe, say, 5 to 10 years, they don't realize that's a 70-year-old with other comorbidities. Got another 5 or 10 years after dissection. It's not applying to me the same way as a 38-year-old. So I think that like so many of us get stuck when we read those statistics that we should celebrate every year at that point. Because it is another year that we're here. That's what's to be celebrated,
So, speaking about another year that we're here, this was fun because we did do a dry run of this before. So let's get into this now. What is life like for Gregg now post dissection? I mean, you're still only 8 weeks out from your most recent event. So let's go 8 years back. What's like for you now? What are some of the things people should know about you separate from Aortic Hope? What's Gregg Aaron Greenberg? Tell everybody.
What is Gregg Aaron Greenberg about?
What's he about?
Well, I think that I mean, as much as we say separate from Aortic Hope, a lot of what Gregg Aaron Greenberg is now is trying to be active in the community and trying to, because that's a lot of it's how I work through what I'm going through. So whether it's giving back my attention to Aortic Hope, whether or not I'm involved with the Think Aorta US campaign, a lot of that is what makes up what I do now. As much as we like to say, yeah, there's other layers, a lot of that is me, and a lot of that is how I handle what I'm going through personally. I find it very therapeutic to make myself available to other survivors and try to calm their anxieties down and try to relax them in moments that they're freaking out, which is completely normal. No one's judging anybody for having this anxiety or anything like that. I mean, there are a lot of times that, there's that stigma of, oh, it's all in your mind. It might just be anxiety. It might be in your mind. Doesn't mean that it's not very real for you. Doesn't mean that there isn't physiological responses to it. So just because someone might say, I think it's your anxiety getting the best of you, it's not dismissing how you feel. I understand that your BP is through the roof because you have anxiety and that's fueling the BP. And now the BP is a little high and there's going to be physiological responses to that BP. So a lot of how I handle what I'm doing or how I'm feeling is trying to work through it for other people. I can't really separate all aspects of who I am if I remove Aortic Hope or what I do for Think Aorta. It's too large of my life. However, you do have to enjoy other things. So there is still the fact that I love film and I love TV. And even though I said earlier that sometimes it's hard to focus, I will still, even if it's more than one sitting to take and film a movie or finish a movie, I will do that. Uh, I prepared for this interview today, watched the movie this morning that I was excited to watch. Um,
Your accent, it's no joke. I mean, no hiding it. You are clearly from.
I'm from New York, originally.
Mhm.
Uh, I am now in Florida, so I have moved since my initial dissection, which Karen was trying to prod me to as one of the major life changes.
I
Um,
think, and when we spoke about this, when we were talking about doing this before, there was a couple inches of snow on the ground here in Maryland where I am, and so now it's been beautiful and sunny. But is it warmed up where you are now? Because
it
we were talking
is,
about the
it
weather,
is,
the differences.
ironically, today is not a wonderful day.
Yeah.
It's a little cooler and it's been a little bit rainy and overcast. So it's been a little cooler like Florida can be this time of year
Hmm.
because to be honest, 60 degrees in Florida this time of year, I mean, a lot of people, it's
They're like in winter coats. They don't know what to do with it.
now here, it's amazing to me.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
jeans and that. Like I might throw on, I mean, with the 325 aspirin and a little thinner blood being down here, I might throw on some long sleeves, but I'll still be in shorts. They are layered to death down here at 60 degrees. But that's pretty much it's common, especially if you have an overcast day, because so much of the temperature down in Florida this time of year is fueled by how much sun is actually getting through. It's the heat from the sun. If you're overcast and in and out of shade, it can be cooler.
Hmm.
I'm also on the West Coast, which tends to be a little bit of the cooler coast as opposed to the East Coast, as opposed to being in the East Coast and in South Florida. I'm
Now, I
more
do know that with this wonderful weather, you did start to work out again pre-COVID. And now your workout, and I'm going to jinx us, just watch, is taking your two adorable dogs for a walk. Let's not let them hear me mention them. Shall they start barking if I do?
try not to stir them from their slumber.
Right.
But yeah, no, I was. It's funny because this is something that probably comes up for a lot of people is how do you exercise? What do you do? What can you do? I had a very strict lifting protocol, um, but I was going to the gym pre-COVID. Uh, I would do about a quarter to a half mile, uh, which doesn't sound like a lot in essence, but I can tell you on a treadmill on partial foot amputations, uh, that's a bunch of steps.
Yeah.
But I would do that, and then I would do some work with some weights, which is 10 or 15 pounds, and as a male, you're getting some looks because there I am crushing it.
With a can of corn,
just,
right?
just yeah, just blasting through reps
Right.
at 10 pounds, and you know that like everybody's looking at you, but I mean that's what you can do. The most important thing is getting the blood going and everything like that in a safe way. So who cares what anyone's looking at you? If using the machine at 10 or 15 pounds is safe and it's getting the blood pumping for you and getting a little exercise, then that's what you do. Like you said, now post COVID, it has not been worth it, even though my state has not shut down nearly as much as potentially other states have.
Mhm.
It's not worth running that risk to me with all my other health issues and the fact that I was looking at surgery and everything that went on in the past 6 months um, to risk going to the gym. But at the same time, I fortunately have moved where I live and I don't have the screened in backyard. So it has created the need to walk the dogs. And that is awesome. They're both relatively strong pit bulls. So there is no walking them together. So that is 2 separate walks multiple times a day for them. So I get my steps in and my exercise that way. And I can tell you that's been a real, I I didn't walk them really at all for the first 6 weeks post this surgery. Um, seventh and eighth week, I might have cheated and took them when they needed to go, and I was the only one around and didn't want to hold them, and it was like, okay, they really need to walk. Uh, but at 8 weeks, I felt good enough to really start being the one to take them multiple times a day, and it's been good. It gets me out, gets you outside, which is good. Outside therapy is always, if you can get the exercise outside and do walks around your community, I would always suggest that. That's always first and foremost. If it's going to the gym, though, the exercise is what's important. But I would always tell you at the same time that outside, getting that sunshine on your face, it's a very important. It's a very important thing as well.
You have another really important hobby. Another part. Why am I telling you all the things to tell everybody about your life? What's happening here? I'm going to do some weird matrix. Let me tell you something else to tell everybody, Greg. Let me prompt you with another thing that you do. I know.
What Karen is alluding to, I think, in this case, is I make Christmas ornaments, custom Christmas ornaments out of Disney and pop culture figures. As basically a little side business and to keep me basically just engaged. It's something to do. It's something to keep me busy, and it makes a couple bucks during Christmas season, which always helps out because let's be honest. I mean, I'm not working yet. Hopefully that will change shortly after my next procedure. My doctor will give me the green light to maybe potentially look at some part-time work to get me out of the house a little bit and to make a little extra money. But at this point, disability only goes so far. It's awesome that I got it after a 3-year fight because a lot of us struggle for a while to get it. But and that can really, I know how tough that can be for everyone. So I'll just say to everyone that is currently in that fight or thinking about it, just be strong. It eventually happens. It'll eventually happen for the overwhelming majority of us. It takes some time for individuals, especially depending on the state they're in. It did take me 3 years, but it only goes so far. I only had so many work credits and money under my belt by 38 that it does not go as far as I want. So that little extra money from me making my ornaments during Christmas season, especially during the holidays, helps.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. We are more questions we have to ask here. So if you could go back in time and tell yourself one piece of advice while you were initially, whether it's in the hospital when you first came home, or even now, if you could go back 7 weeks, even knowing what you knew going into a pre-planned surgery, there still has to be something you've learned that you could go back and tell yourself, hey, you know what? Pack this to go to the hospital, or don't worry so much about this, or don't be so hard on yourself, or use your breathing exercises more, whatever it is. What would be something that you would tell yourself if you could go back when you were in the hospital or while you were in recovery? Things that you learned now.
That's a really good question. They're very different for obviously the two different situations because I had knowledge 7 years post dissection going into the planned surgery. So that weapon wasn't quite as my weapon was loaded. I was a little armed with a little more knowledge going into this past one. With this past surgery, I would tell myself that, like I said earlier, I'm all about not wasting anxiety on certain things. because it gets your stress up for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
And as you know, and a lot of people that I might have spoken to, I was really worried. And I mean, as much as I was worried about not surviving the surgery, you get to the point where that's kind of a moot point. Like, I'm not going to know about it. But what I was really, really afraid of, and the anxiety that I carried into this one, was I didn't have that. I didn't think I had that strength for another 98-day fight if I had complications.
Right.
So I would have loved to not waste that anxiety, and reminded myself that you'll cross that bridge and you'll fight that fight when it comes, if you have to fight it. Um, Worrying about it now is pointless. Just get through the surgery and work, because for anybody that follows us or might have seen me, I went live like a day after surgery. Everything was grand. I was sitting in the chair ready. I looked and felt great, especially for less than 24 hours after surgery. And then I got hit with a potential hiccup, like literally hours after I went live. And if you watch the second video, you can see the difference when I go live with my NG tube in my nose. There's a little bit of a demeanor. You can tell that I'm already anticipating what's going to be, like, I'm waiting for that shoe to drop.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see it. As much as I'm trying to keep a brave face, there's obviously some anxiety of, here we go again. The first thing's gone wrong. The next thing's going to go wrong. I'm never getting out of this hospital. It's going to be the same thing as the last time. So, and all that was just wasted. It was just wasted anxiety. It was stress for the sake of, for nothing. It was all going to calm down. Days later, that NG tube was going to be taken out. I was going to be allowed to eat. The swallowing issues were going to resolve themselves, and I was going to be home in 9 days. So that really would be the advice I would give the new Gregg that that was having the planned surgery, that it was not going to be the emergency situation. The emergency Gregg needs a ton of advice. The Gregg that went through the emergency had 98 days to just feel sorry about himself in the hospital, and then it took a long time to come out of it. I think the biggest advice I would give that Gregg is some of the advice that I give to people in the community. And I would have told him very early on, as bad as it sounds, that the Gregg that he knew ahead of time had died when he dissected. He was no longer going to be the Gregg that he was then. But like a phoenix rising from ashes, there was going to be this Gregg that was 90%, 95% the old Gregg, with just some limitations and maybe some restrictions. And that Gregg was going to be around to celebrate from that moment on.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the biggest piece of advice I would have for both hospitalized Gregg from the first dissection and people moving forward now. And I think the best way that you can do, I give myself, you and I have talked about it, I give myself 5 or 10 minutes every day to mourn the Gregg that I lost, and understand that I'm not going to be the athlete that I was. I'm not going to do this. I might not do that. But there's a Gregg that is 90 to 95% exactly like the Gregg previously. And he still has his family, and he still has his loved ones around him and his friends. And he can still enjoy his life, to the fullest. And
So
understand.
No, go ahead. Finish up. Go ahead.
Understand that just because that fullest looks a little different doesn't mean that it's not a full life.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's
well,
travel.
So you just went right into the last question, which was the advice you give to a community member. So now I'm going off the cuff. I'm just going to go off the cuff. Let's just throw some at you. what would be you're gonna love this, you're gonna hate me for this. What would be a song that you echo? So when we have these contests on our Facebook page and we say, name a song that you think of that someone would play when you walked into the room, what would be?
Okay. Well, I'm a huge fan of the 80s.
Okay.
80s music is awesome. So
Yeah.
I would say, as I walk into a room in my own my own internal soundtrack, I am probably strutting to Warrior by Scandal.
Good one.
Smythe.
Yeah.
Because I went through a lot. So that's there. That's that.
That's a good one.
You know,
That's
and
a
I
good
think that's very important. You brought up music and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Any of the mediums, whether it be a book character, whether it be a movie character, or whether it be a song.
What's the movie that you find most inspiring? We do these all the time as a survivor. What's your most inspiring this, that, and the other?
Movie that's most inspiring.
Yeah.
I got to be honest with you, with the way that my emotions are, I'm just looking for the movie that's not going to like cause an emotional breakdown.
Like Notebook or something like that.
I'll tell you this, as far as inspiring me,
yeah.
when I was in the hospital over that 98 days, TNT was running a lot of Iron Man. And obviously, if you've ever seen Iron Man or know anything about the comic books, he usually had a heart injury.
Right.
And everything that, like, basically he became was because he was trying to survive his heart thing. So basically, you have this superhero story based on a guy who had a heart trauma. So while I was in the hospital, in the middle of that mess of everything that was going wrong, it's hard to say that that movie was not a giant inspiration. As ridiculous as superhero films or as popcorn loving as superhero films may be, it's hard not to say that wasn't inspiring at that given moment. It came along, it was playing on, not that I'm here to plug cable television, but it was playing on TBS or TNT or one of those channels at the right time. And it was one of those weekends where it was on 6 times, 7 times a day, 2 or 3 days, and I watched it every single time. Obviously with naps in between, but it got me through a lot at that point. So,
all right. So I have another question for you before I get to the next question. For those that are watching us live now, if you have any comments or questions or any interactions you want to have with us while we're here on AHTV, please go ahead and put them in the comments section below, and like and subscribe, of course. But put your questions in the comments below. And I'm waiting for my secret sound to come on. Oh, well, there's no such thing as late. There's no such thing, because always you can rewind our videos and watch them at any time. So if somebody ends up missing us when we're live, you can always watch us at any time.
The Illini, yes. Yes, I will say hi to April. April's part of our community. She, like me, I think, like I am. I'm not really quite sure on how you would word that, but she is an Illini like me, which means that we went to the University of Illinois, and we are Illini tough. We are ILL, and right now in her mind, she's saying INI. And yeah, we'll shout out to the school. We'll shout out to the basketball team, because we're going to be going into March Madness, and hopefully we'll be a top seed and we'll advance in this NCAA tournament this year. So right. I'm glad she was able to join us.
I do have another question for you, and this is all in the attempt of potential shameless plugs, but
yes.
Oh, we're going to give another shout out to Michael Smith.
Yes.
Hi, Mike.
Michael, good to have you with us.
So Greg, you made it very clear that it hasn't been 8 years, because I think it's probably been the last 5 of your 8 years. Aortic Hope is pretty much your day in and day out. I mean, as we often tell people, in helping them, we ultimately end up helping ourselves. And Aortic Hope is based on survivors and caregivers. That is pretty much the individuals that are on our board. That's who, make the organization work. So then, having said that, what would be the initiatives or the things that Aortic Hope brings to the community that you believe are the strongest? I mean, they're all strong, but the strongest for a new survivor, an existing survivor. What would be some of the things that really strike you?
Well, I'm hoping this series moving forward is going to be a big pull. I think that originally our Survivor series has been huge, because whether it be video or blog form, other people, especially new to the community, can see how cathartic and how even just well adjusted, especially in the video, even though someone might get choked up or get emotional. You can see it if you go back and watch my old Survivor Series video, that there are probably definitely times that I'm starting to get a little bit emotional. But that it's normal, but then you can still reel it back in and get across what you want to get across and all the positives that have come out since then. So that's very big. I mean, everybody has their own little things. We've revamped the website, which obviously you have worked very hard on, and there have been others that hopefully that will bring a better experience to everything. Focus on, because we've been so Facebook focused last couple of years, because that's where we existed and came about as a Facebook group.
Were you watching us when we first started? Because we started, I guess it was like probably fall 15, early 16. We were just doing quotes, I think.
Yeah.
Because it was 17.
I had definitely seen you guys from when you first started. That's how you and I eventually got to talking and stuff like that. But I was much more active at that point. I wouldn't say much more active versus now, but I was very focused at that point, even with commenting in a lot of the written forums of people that were legitimately having anxiety or questions about, the doctor said this, what does it mean? So I was much more active in that part of the community, which is, I would like to think, is part of what, I helped bring to Aortic Hope, was that idea of us really being informational. And I'm not saying pat myself on the back like I was the only one that said that, but the transition from what we were and just that quick inspirational quote to we should be providing information. We need to be attaching them with the right information about therapy, the right information about disability, stuff like that. I would like to think that I had some influence in taking Aortic Hope to that level.
Well, you started the Survivor Series. I mean, when you came on board, it really was, you have this natural ability and desire to be readily available 24 hours a day. And you are much more entrenched in the other pages, in the valve pages, in the aneurysm pages. And so you really were at the beginning stages of Survivor Series from day one, from jump one. And we had transitioned, because we had started off with live Q&As. We were doing all of that in Hope Mail. And then when we were getting ready to speak at the John Ritter Symposium back in 2018, we started in 17 building a lot of these initiatives, and Survivor Series was a really big first one, and it's stuck with us the last 4 years. And And then you came up with the idea on the where are they now? Let's see what people are doing after they've already, given
Right.
this story.
Because they're two different things that are very important. Because listen, for every survivor, I want the catharsis of being able to talk about what they went through. And there's a huge catharsis for other people watching that, knowing that what their feelings were when they went through their event, that they weren't, that's not unique to them. So there is definitely a place for the Survivor Series, but like you said, there's a definite need to show that life isn't just your event. Like where do you go from there?
Well, I think you're right. What you're going to see is there's so many similarities in the Survivor Series, which just for those of you watching, we have some people that are handling different aspects of the overarching Survivor concept. And you find there's a lot of similarities between, whether you've had a planned surgery or you've had a dissection, there's things that are very in common. And so as a new survivor, you read these stories or view them and you think, wow, yes, that happened to me. Or you come away and you say, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened to them. But in the where are they now, what I love that was so different about your idea is there should be no two things the same because everybody is now living their life. And so how exciting to hear. I know people in the community that train horses, people that are comedians, people that play music, that are on the radio, that there's so many different things that these survivors are doing. And that's I can't wait to see more of the people you're going to interview.
That's what's very exciting about this. Like you said, there are going to be, we're going to obviously touch upon people's, what happened to them very briefly in this series, but that's not what the focus is. The focus is where do you go from there?
Right.
We understand that you had this. And like you said, outside of complications or presentations and diagnosis, those stories are similar. I get it. You dissected. Or I get it. You had a bicuspid valve and an aneurysm. So did I, or something like that. Those parts are going to be the similarities. And that definitely holds its purpose because to somebody that's a new survivor, seeing someone like you that's able to talk about it, you might not be at the stage that you're able to talk about it. A lot of people can't talk about it. A lot of people don't want to talk about it. A lot of people can't talk about it with their loved ones. They feel like they're a burden to their loved ones. They don't want their caregiver to have to relive what the emergency was because let's be honest, they had their hands full. And I think that's a huge focus. That's why I pretty much love the idea of Aortic Hope from the get-go was that we were never going to be just about dissections, or we were never going to be about a thoracic aneurysm or an abdominal aneurysm. We were going to be all encompassing. We were going to be all encompassing. We were going to be caregivers. We started the grief forum.
Do you remember when we used to argue with people in the community and they would say, well, there's this delineation, there's this line at the chest that once it becomes descending, it's all vascular. So we don't talk about that. And you and I used to sit there and say, but it's still the same aorta. Did it split? Did something happen that we're not aware of anatomically? And we just used to say, that makes no sense. It's like saying, well, one type of orthopedic will take from the elbow up, but the elbow down is only a hand specialist. Well, this doesn't make any sense. It's an arm. It's still a complete arm. Right. And that's when we were like aortic disease in its entirety.
And you know what? You just brought up a really good analogy because with that hand specialist, there might be a wrist or a hand specialist that your orthopedist might send you to.
Right.
Doesn't change the fact that you go to your orthopedist first. And then he might go, listen, I have a great hand guy that works out of this hospital. He's doing some amazing things with what is individually wrong with you. I want to refer you to him. That's how we have to look at the aorta.
And its entirety. And everybody deserves a seat at the table.
I just had what's called the elephant trunk. There was a vascular team operating on my descending aorta at the same time that I had the sternotomy and my cardiothoracic surgeon working on my on my arch all the way to my root.
Yeah.
So it, to say that it's not hand in hand and that they don't go together. I mean, I get that there's specifics and this and that. Listen, there are a lot of wonderful things that I love about the forum. There are a lot of things that I would change. I think sometimes people aren't specific enough in giving their story. So you get 75 people that all chime in with an answer and want to help, but a lot of those answers sometimes don't apply because you're talking to an intact aneurysm person, but you're giving them the perspective of a dissectee.
Right.
And so don't get me wrong, there are specifics that I think can be hammered out, but I think we can all help each other. Because you can't tell me just because I dissected that I don't have a perspective about watch and wait. You have a perspective on watch and wait because you have a secondary aneurysm that's being watched and you're waiting for it, whether or not it's going to need or its eventual surgery to repair it.
But the only thing we don't have perspectives on are valve replacement, because I don't think any of us on the board have had their valves replaced.
No, I don't. No.
We might. they alter. They go up and down, mild, moderate, what have you. But we don't get that. But yeah,
I've been fortunate. I've been hit with, some heart failure in the last couple of months due to a new arrhythmia that showed up, an atrial flutter. But luckily, and we risked my valve with how aggressive we were with the last surgery. But again, he was like very comfortable. Your valve didn't need to be touched. So I was like, okay.
All right, we are into the last few minutes here. But we are going to say hi to Annette. Hi, Annette.
Hello,
Got
Annette.
Questions for Gregg? So, Annette, you have a 5-centimeter aneurysm type B dissection, and it is very nerve-wracking, I think, to go to the doctor. So that's the first thing you should say to your doctor. I would say, I'm really scared. I'm not even really sure what to expect in this appointment. And you probably talk to people all day, every day, and I guarantee you they do, with this same problem. I need you to give me the information as if I'm the very first person and I'm one of your relatives. I need you to take the time and hold my hand and give me some clear idea of what to expect moving forward. Because we can't tell you at what stage surgeries happen. There's so many different moving parts with that. But just be very upfront with your doctor, like you just were here, and ask them to hold your hand. And they should take the time to draw a diagram, give you definitions. Am I right, Gregg? Take you through step by step.
I think the key is how comfortable you are with your doctor. Because if you're comfortable and it's being monitored, they'll address it when it needs to be addressed. For a lot of us in this community, it's rare that there are emergencies outside of the connective tissue people when you're being monitored. The doctors have a pretty good grasp on when they need to intervene and when they don't. So if that's part of your concern, he or she is going to tell you what's going on. If it's the idea of surgery that scares you, I can tell you as somebody that's been through both the emergency and planned, that planned is the odds of complication are small. They can happen, but they're small.
And it's scary. Look, any surgery, I don't care if you're even going for a procedure, everything is going to be scary because you don't have control over the situation. But if you feel really comfortable with your doctor, just let them know that you're pretty nervous. This is new for you. And all these stories are around online, and they'll tell you exactly what your story looks like to them. And they do this all day, every day. And so what you need to learn is your story and what is your next step going to be. That's what I would say.
Right. And remember, you've been you've been building potentially for this moment. And I know that it comes over like, oh God, I just got the scan back, and it hits you like a hammer at this point, like, oh, we've reached it. But like Karen said, like if you're comfortable with them, know that they're like they only have your best interests. I know that we a lot of times we talk about it from a patient side of like, oh, I wish they were a better hand holder, or someone might have a critique, but these people are at the top of their game, and they only have your best interests in their mind. Um, they're going to do what's right for you based on what they see.
So I understand it must be very scary if you lose a loved one, and having an aneurysm, a known aneurysm, even having had a dissection and having a known aneurysm can be very scary. I think, again, you have to really let the doctors know about family history. Even if you had a loved one that passed and nobody knows why, it's very important that your doctors know your family history. When they are thinking about your aorta, they need to think family, because it'll help put together a clearer picture for them. And I know it's very scary, but the unfortunate part is there's nothing that anybody can do to control this situation except do what your doctors told you to do. Follow restrictions, follow a plan. Because things happen to family members doesn't mean it's going to happen to us. And there really isn't anything that Greg or I are going to tell you that's going to truly alleviate your fear. Except know this: fear increases all kinds of chemicals in your body, which has the potential for increasing blood pressure and heart rate. And we kind of really don't want that. So might be a good time to talk with a therapist and learn some simple grounding techniques. I will say that we do have a therapist joining us on March 18th at 6 p.m. We will be going live, and she's going to be talking about ways to deal with situations like this when you have health-related issues and how to combat the stress, to help ground yourself and to make it a little bit easier to deal with on a day-to-day basis. So interesting. I know there's a lot of people out there who have been a caregiver themselves and have watched other people go through aortic disease or any other situation. And it's very different when the tables turn and you have to be the patient. It's the same for us as patients when all of a sudden we have to be a caregiver for any given situation. It's very scary for caregivers, and it's very scary for patients. These are real life things we're dealing with. And I think the best thing to do is to ask every and any question you have, because now you're going to be a patient yourself. And if you like your doctor, if you have faith in your doctor, and if they're going too quickly, ask them to slow down. This is your body. This is your time in that appointment. Ask them to slow down and just continuously let them know your fear. Hey, and if you need a little medication to help you cope with the fear, if natural grounding techniques and other things aren't working, there's nothing wrong in that as well, if your doctor feels that's what's necessary to give you the potential best outcome for any surgery that you may have in the future.
And I'll add into that like Karen said, again, this goes back to what I was talking about earlier about the unwanted anxiety. This is all very normal, but like Karen had said, this releases stuff that you don't want. Like that sort of stress is not gonna benefit you. So you have to try to find something that's gonna work for you. As far as dying in your sleep or having an emergency, the odds, I can't say it's not going to happen or that there's no potential, but the odds of it are small. Um, they're monitoring you. They're like, we're getting to the point where they're going to address it probably. So I think it's time at this point, like really to start not so much worrying and focusing on that, but how are you going to handle the idea that they might tell you it's time for surgery? I think that's very realistic that it's getting close to that point. Um, or at least it's going to be discussed. He might very well, or she might very well say, not quite yet. We would like to get to this size before we handle it. But right now, your focus should still be on they're monitoring me, and I'm going to do everything that's best to try to keep my blood pressure down.
If you've had a conversation, my husband had lost family members very early age, and my mother did too. And I know other people who have lost family members very early age, and they're always a little bit more anxious when they surpass that number. And now they're living longer than their family members before them. And these are all really great comments and thoughts, and they would be so well served with a therapist that specializes in health related anxiety and stress. They really, really will. As somebody who's been through EMDR therapy and cognitive based therapy for health related issues, because having aortic disease is not my only problem. I do have an autoimmune disorder as well. It is very helpful to get these thoughts out and to learn ways to manage them. But everything that you're describing in your comments, I can see where it would be very, very scary and where it will be anxiety provoking. But I do highly recommend you talk to a therapist about this beforehand.
And I agree.
Are there any other questions? I think we know we're at our time limit right now. But I do want to ask Greg one more question.
Okay.
Wait, one more comment. Okay, all right. Sometimes anxiety medications are not necessarily the best course of action from some doctors, but there can be other techniques and ways. Grounding is going to be the best technique for you. Learning how to use your 5 senses. We actually have a resource page on our website on aortichope.org under resources that talks about grounding techniques and ways you can use your 5 senses. It's really simple to help almost find an immediate impact in alleviating stress. But my quick question for Greg, 2 weeks, we have our next Where Are They Now? Who are you going to be interviewing?
We shall see. We might be flipping the script, and it might be the reverse of this, or
could be, who knows, right?
Or there are people that are interested. So in doing it. So if we can get everything done and they contact me and they're interested, then maybe you'll get a reprise for you'll get a reprieve for a week or two, and be the next one after that.
So right now we are alternating Survivor Series and Where Are They Now? If you have not yet given your story, whether in blog form or in video form, and you're interested in participating in the Survivor Series, now we're also offering for the bravest of souls to have an opportunity to either pre-record or go live with your story as part of that original Survivor Series. The links will be below. But if you have participated in the Survivor Series, there is also a link below that'll allow you to sign up for the Where Are They Now series that we've just launched starting today. And a member of our team will be in touch with you to go over all the details on when you will be featured in our series, whether it's one or the other. And don't forget to click like and subscribe below. So I think that's it, Greg. You're great to interview.
Thank you.
So fun. I can hear the answers in my head. It is. This was good. It was a good idea to go live. I don't know who thought of that. I don't know, but it was great. And this is the way that it should be. I love having an opportunity to interact with people. Thank you so much for your comments, your questions. Again, this can be reviewed and rewatched anytime, and you can still leave some more comments at the bottom, and we will definitely reply. Until next time, Greg.
I don't even know what to say.
Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us. I'm Karen with Aortic Hope and AHTV, and
I'm Gregg Greenberg, and thank you for joining us. And like Karen said, feel free to like and subscribe us.